long as your questions are for him about world events or whatever they are, we'll go to your calls. And since I'm getting Bob Chapman on today, I'll have calls for Bob Chapman as well. What happened with Kurt Haskell? I heard Chris get him on the phone. Is he going to pop in too about the underwear bomber stuff? Well, if he needs to do it at 12:30, we'll do it then too, or we can do it in the end of Bob's interview. Because he got up there in his statement as a victim and said this is an inside job. So we'll talk to him. Of course, you know, he's an eyewitness confirming the U.S. government got him on the plane. It turned out it's true, but that shouldn't be investigated either, you know. Well, we got a lot of news. Arizona's considering a bill to finance the vehicles and communications equipment for volunteer militia to patrol the border. The border is a complete lawless war zone with the feds ordering the Border Patrol basically to stand down on record. The Border Patrol have gone public on that. Of course, the government shipping guns to Mexico. And the media, the traitor, New World Order occupational brainwasher media, I'm not just saying that. I mean, this is a foreign, globalist, banker, whore media there to destroy this country. Here to bring in world government, here to destroy our sovereignty. They're like, oh my gosh, a militia. That's what civil defense is. And the feds do actually have jurisdiction right on the border. They're supposed to be there. It's one of the few things they're supposed to do. But since they won't let them do their job, the state can also put people right up next to the border and simply get local police to take care of it and fund the sheriffs to have basically a posse because the illegals are burning down houses, raping, killing people. I mean, I got piles of news here today I'm looking at Infowars.com, just on that front. It is total bedlam. Here's some of the news. FBI to spy on gold bugs via suspicious comments app. And if you talk on Twitter about paying for cash for coffee or anything, you're being flagged. DHS, as you know, has huge hiring programs, hiring all the spies. FEMA follows DHS in monitoring news coverage of its activities 24/7. Then they contact YouTube on record and tell them, take that video down or block it or put parental controls on it. It's critical of government. And what do the requests say? Which hurts our capability to protect you. Censor this person because it hurts our capability to protect everyone. If we don't look good in the public's eye and they know we're narcotics trafficking murderers that ship guns into Mexico and run child kidnapping rings worldwide and launder the drug money, hundreds of billions a year, everybody won't go along with us anymore. So let's start censoring them. That's a translation. Continuing, Kurt Haskell exposes government deception in underwear bomber case. That's up there. We actually got his full statement first. It ended up being picked up by the AP and others with no credit to us, of course. They gave it to us first, even right as the press conference took place. Actually gave it to us way before the press conference, said release it at this time, and we ended up releasing it after his press conference, and so some media got the jump on us. We're so trendy, we actually don't break big news when we could. We sat on it, but it doesn't even matter. The point is it's already in the featured news archive up there. Also, when technology fails, when environmentalist Matthew Stein is actually an environmental expert because he's a design engineer from MIT. And continuing, FBI could shut down internet for thousands on March 8 to eradicate virus. That's right. They found the virus, which I'll guarantee you they launched. Evidence shows they did, just like Stuxnet. But now they're going to go out and rehack your computer and load good stuff on it. But there's a problem. Then you won't be able to surf the web after March. Did you hear that? Cyber Command is going to go in and fix your computer for you. They're going to be in your computer without asking. Isn't that sweet? See how they just hide that stuff in plain view. Also, report, insider documents detail March 23rd Greek default plan, government to freeze bank accounts. That's big news at Infowars.com right now. And new implantable microchips to medicate patients. We told you that was coming. It's an Infowars.com article, and you're like, I don't believe that. Oh, really? They're going to say you're not going to be able to even get the shots. Everything will be deployed by a microchip, even if it's being injected. The microchip's there to authorize you don't abuse it. And that's also in Reuters, I should add for you. Greg Palast is coming up, best-selling author, BBC investigative journalist. and a lot more. And, of course, I'll give you the number out after he covers some topics. We'll take your calls for him, Bob Chapman, and a lot of other people coming up today. Prisonplanet.tv is also streaming live video of the radio show right now. Well, I covered the fact last hour that we've got some really good news. I'm going to cover some of it, then we're going to go to Greg Palast and then take your calls. Conservatives and enthusiasts cheer the end of the long gun registry. More than a decade ago, they passed the gun registry program of gun owners and gun purchases, and government used it for gun confiscation in law-abiding cases. And then I have the Washington Times article, NRA official, Obama wants to outlaw guns in second term. And he said to Sarah Brady, I will do this through covert means, like shipping guns to Mexico and blaming it on the Second Amendment. Even CBS News reported the memos, back and forth. Why are we doing this? It's illegal. It's going to be used to restrict Second Amendment. It's going to be used to shut down gun shows and ban semi-auto rifles and handguns. That's most guns. That's the memos. I mean, they want your guns. As a state senator, he said, total gun ban. His attorney general might as well be a North Korean dictator. He says there is no private ownership right. UNIDIR, the UN, small arms group, says ban the Second Amendment. July 7th, 2000 meeting. Go read it online. They said, we will have the complete abolition of individual firearms ownership because it threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. Of course, that's an honest statement, except for the part about power monopolies being legitimate. You think a slave in ancient Rome had a sword? You think a black slave had a gun? In fact, the first gun laws were passed at the end of the Civil War. They said, look, in the South, they said, we're not going to have black folks with guns. Pass them. So I'm going to get into that report because it's getting more attention now. We're in a lot of trouble. And by the way, Mitt Romney will go after your guns and carbon taxes. This is the elite want their slaves disarmed. Just like a bank robber comes in and tells the armed guard, put your hands up, put the gun on the floor, everybody hands up. The government's like, hands up. Can't have a garden. We're shutting down the Amish, selling milk. Can't sell peaches on the side of the road. Can't have guns. Can't have a water well. People that live on lakes who even have the property rights going back and water rights on record are being told, sorry, LCRA sold out to a foreign group. You can't take water out of the lake anymore. You can't have a boat dock on the lake anymore is next. I mean, it's just all over the world. They're coming in. They're taking over the water. They're taking over the roads. They're hijacking. And they got their people saying, we're taking your guns. Obama is a fascist teleprompter reading maggot. And so is Mitt Romney. So are all of them. And if you want real change, you better wake up to that fundamental fact. When the big money is putting money behind somebody like Mittens Romney or Newt Gingrich, you better believe they're the scum of the earth. Let's say they're not a bad person. They're still total sellouts, empty suits that are basically just animated by whatever's on the teleprompter. They might as well just have a virtual president that's a computer program, and then the system just puts words into it. All right, I want to get into the economy. I want to get into it's all over the news. They're saying, yeah, war is imminent with Iran, troops massing. They're saying Iran's going to blow stuff up in the Israel and the U.S. Governments are known, Gulf of Tonkin type stuff. Cheney got caught wanting to do it. I mean, and the CFR saying brace for an attack. We could be days, months. Just like I told you last year, the plan is to hit. But the Pentagon said no again last year. And now they're getting the Pentagon starting to say, okay, I guess we can, I guess we can. Man, I tell you, this is a nightmare. All right, joining us for the rest of the hour. Joining us for the rest of the hour is Greg Palast, and of course, he's a best-selling author, written for the BBC, written for London Guardian, you name it, ABC News. I mean, I remember they put an arrest warrant out after Katrina under Homeland Security saying he was showing secret installations, and it was on the news. It was an arrest warrant out for him because they have under the Patriot Act saying if you report on sensitive installations, this was a toxic waste dump, you can be arrested. And I thought, my gosh, is this real? I went and looked it up. There it was. And he's one of the few people in mainstream media who will actually tell it like it is. Though, I mean, he attacks the left and the right. He's a former federal fraud investigator. And he goes after the whole system. And I had him on the other night, riveting interview on on the TV show. But since we've talked and so much is going on, what is number one on your radar? I've got my questions. You hear me here ranting about all of this. But what is number one on your radar?
Well, Alex, I would say number one on my radar is the end of democracy. And it's ending where it began in Greece. The bankers have now decided that they have the right to appoint presidents and prime ministers, and they're being applauded by the mainstream press from the New York Times and of course the European Union, et cetera. So you have an economics professor who was a bank advisor in the U.S. I'm not even sure you could call him Greek. He had Greek parents, was born in Greece, is now the so-called prime minister of Greece. You have Monti, Carlo Monti, who is now been appointed prime minister of Italy. Again, not elected. So the cradle of democracy and Italy not elected. You're going to see this all over the place. So-called caretaker technocrat
We're already
governance.
seeing it in Michigan and Rhode Island and New Jersey and all over, where they're taking over even major cities like in RoboCop or something and saying the corporation runs things now. The city signs on to fraud and derivatives that weren't there. They double, triple prices on everything and then turn the street lights off. I mean, this is what they did in Argentina.
Yeah, and except that in Argentina, the people rose up and they went into the streets and they told the IMF to go stick it where the banks don't shine. And now their economy is growing at 8% a year. They told the bankers to forget it. You're not, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, that gang is not allowed to operate. Not allowed to operate in Argentina or Brazil. Those economies are booming. They never got poisoned by the toxic derivatives once they threw these guys out, and that's what's happening.
In every case, you let these vampires in, they're going to suck you dry.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Argentina, for example, they're required to privatize the water systems just as we're doing here. They sold off the Buenos Aires water system to Enron after Jeb Bush made a personal call to the president of Argentina, Menem, and said, my daddy's about to become president. This is when Bush Sr. was coming in, and he would appreciate it if you would turn over the water system to Enron. And it's not like Menem had any scruples. And the pressure was on, and he turned it over. And, of course, they ended up with 400% increase in the price of water, and then no water, and then the company with the water evaporated. But that's the pattern. They tried it there, then they bring it here. They tried it in Latin America, then they bring it over to Europe. I mean, you just talked about what's happening in Greece. I call Greece a crime scene. It's not a nation where people were profligate and they're a bunch of lazy, ouzo swilling, olive pit spitting Greeks that just hang around and retire when they're teenagers. That's the baloney you get from the press. These are hardworking people. They have very long work hours, much longer than Germany, by the way, officially. The problem is that their banking system was looted by an agreement between the last two governments, both their big parties, and Goldman Sachs. It was just looted.
Well, their finance ministers and presidents were all Goldman Sachs people.
Yeah. And what they had was there was a deal. And I discussed this in my book, Vultures Picnic. There was a deal to hide the deficit of Greece through a currency swap arrangement with Goldman Sachs. Goldman, on paper, took a multi-billion-dollar loss, which Goldman never deliberately takes a multi-billion-dollar loss on anything. It was a phony, and there's a secret agreement to pay them back at usurious interest rates, plus they got a $500 million fee. This is a fraud. Nice work, by the way, for some flim-flam currency paper. This is a fraud upon the market. When I was a fraud investigator for the government, when we used to actually, put people in prison for that type of thing. I mean, that's what we did. It's a violation. It used to be considered a violation of racketeering laws. But when you do it in coordination with the heads of state secretly of another government, they're not going to be touched. They're not going to be touched. But what happened was when it was discovered that there was nothing left in the Greek treasury that had been looted in this manner, of course, they've had to now pay interest rates of 15, 16%. And the economy's imploded. No one could pay that. If your mortgage went up by 400%,